Welcome once again to Canada on this occasion for the second stage of the inaugural Tour de Ski, this time featuring the men's mass start classic race over 17,500 kilometers. We're in Canada, in Montreal, the largest city in the Canadian province of Quebec and the second largest city in Canada. The course that the men will undertake today is tough, the weather is hard, and it's all based about Mont-Royal, the hill. They call it a mountain sometimes here, around which Jacques Cartier, who in the 15th century as an explorer found and climbed this hill for the first time and gave the name to the city, even though it is only 233 meters high. Well, before we get underway with today's race for the men, a rewind to 24 hours to Gatineau, opposite the capital of Ottawa, to see Sergei Ustigov triumph in the men's sprint. This is how they got away in the men's sprints. Peter Northug, closest due, wearing one, and Richard Juvet in yellow and blue for France. But it was Finn-Hågen Krogh who led the way out there with Juvet and Northug desperate to get some big points, with Sergei Ustigov, the Russian, on the far side on the first of the two laps, happy to sit at the back, as he'd done for much of the journey in the semi-finals when he broke a pole and had to recover from that. But as they came into the last 75 meters, turning into the straight there, it was Ustigov who'd powered from last to first to come through to head on the far side Simeon Hamilton and Richard Juvet, who just grabbed second on the line. And Juvet with a personal best, Simeon Hamilton on the podium in third place for the United States. But Ustigov, powerful and impressive, and a great start for the 23-year-old Russian. Well, as a result of yesterday's race, the order in which they finished now becomes the starting order for today. And it's coming up to 2:30 in the afternoon in Montreal. And we'll be back after this to set up the Mass Start Classic. So good afternoon, just a couple of minutes to 2:30 here in Montreal for the second stage of this inaugural Tour of Canada. I'm David Goldstrom, and alongside me Posey Musgrave, the sister of Andrew Musgrave, who's involved in today's race. Hasn't been feeling 100%, so I gather from Posey, but he's hoping to go fast, as he said, Posey. But you've looked at this course. It's twisty, it's turny, it's difficult, and the weather doesn't make it any easier.
It certainly doesn't. It's been really cold out there in Canada since they got started, and that doesn't help on this course. You can see it's got a lot of twists and turns on it, so it's going to be all about the tactics, I think, today, making sure you're positioned so that when that mass start, if they kick off the front of it, you're ready to go. So there's some couple of really narrow bits as well, which I think you can sometimes see an accordion effect where the pack really comes together and strings out. So that's going to be a big factor today.
And of course, as we saw in the women's race, this could bring into account, as you see the start list, those who've got yellow cards, because we're in classic stride and glide, and those go right through the season. Now, if you offend for a second time, you're gone.
You're gone, yeah.
You're gone.
So you don't want to risk that, especially with an 8-stage tour here.
And with so many corners, the temptation to overstep round them and break out of classic, the jury will be watching this very, very keenly. It's a really good field that we have here for the men's competition. 85 competitors from 18 nations. And Andrew Musgrave starting in the 40s, and we'll try and keep track of Andrew. He'd much prefer this to be a freestyle race, and I think we might see him to greater effect later on in the tour. But you can see the crowds have really come out to enjoy and support here. And support is really important because it has been earlier in the day blowing a blizzard. -7 the air temperature, Posey, but the wind, the women were really wrapped up and they were moving constantly on the start line.
Yeah, the wind is making it really chilly out there. As you said, you could see in the women's, the snow was whipping across the track. So the key here is for them to keep warm at the start. So it doesn't seem like very long. You might only be there for 2 minutes. But you can really chill in those 2 minutes if you're not careful.
So Sergei Ustugov, who won that opening freestyle sprint yesterday, he wears the red bib as the tour leader, and he starts in the front line. There you can see Martin Jonsrud Sundby, who actually qualified for the top 30, and he starts with effectively bib number 19, so he's got a bit of traffic to work through. Richard Jouvet with a personal best, his spirits will be high, but you can see the guys, the same as the women earlier in the day. They're really on the move here because with the wind chill, the wind was 9 kilometers per hour earlier on. That's a bit wicked.
Also from Norway,
So this field of 85 just about to come under starters' orders for the second stage of the inaugural Tour of Canada. Posey Musgrave alongside myself, David Goldstrom, for this journey of 17,500 meters in classic style, 5 times round a loop of 3.5 kilometers, and they're always doing something on this particular course. If they're not climbing, they're descending. If they're not descending, they're turning and twisting, and away they go for the first of the 3.5 kilometer loops. And also just to bear in mind that there are 2 bonus sprints within this journey on leg 2 and leg 4, and for that the first to cross the line will get a benefit of a 15-second reduction in their running time, and then it's 12 for second place, 10 for third, very much as it was in the Tour de Ski. So there's 30 seconds during the race, and the first who crosses the line can also earn an additional 15 seconds. In fact, the first 3 can have a finishing bonus as well. Now, this is the second stage, so in terms of World Cup points, there are 50 points available for winning the stage, half points effectively to the normal World Cup number. And then at the end of it, who crosses the line after stage 8, when we move from the west to Canmore and over the Rockies, whoever crosses the last stage in first place will pick up a bonus of 400 points. So those are the rules and regs, and now, Posey, we can really get into the race.
Let's get into the fun stuff now, yeah. You can see it was pretty frantic up there at the beginning. It narrowed down from about 6 lanes at the beginning to 3 or 4 really quickly. So everyone's always jostling right at the beginning to try and get a good position to begin with.
I think, to be fair, the men have got slightly the better of the conditions, not in terms of temperature, but there's not so much wind, and there's a little less loose snow because the women were really forced to herringbone.
Yeah, but I mean, look at all this snow plowing going on right here. It's not often you'll see a whole men's field putting in some snow plows like that. So partly that's conditions, partly it's just the effect of being in a big group like that, and the ones at the back have to sort of watch they're not banging into the ones in front of them.
So the red-bibbed Sergei Ustugov leading the way, and to his left there, Emil Iversen, who was just a little disappointing in the sprint yesterday because he only finished in 7th place, and then you got 9. That's the just behind. You've got Richard Jouvet, sorry, that's bib number 3 going through there. But I know you yesterday you were a bit impressed with Sergei Ustugov, weren't you?
I was indeed. He just looked so comfortable in his heat. I think he managed to control it really well. He started off at the back, he took it easy, but he made his move when it mattered, and he came through at the end. And I just think he's got a great chance in this tour because he's a good sprinter, but he's a good distance skier and good in skate and classic as well. So he's got everything, and that's what you need to be consistent in a tour.
So he's sort of the Erzberg of the men's tour.
Yeah, you can say that, yeah. And he's done himself a huge favour here by being able to set off in front, because he hasn't had to worry about You know, like Sumbi's had to work his way through the crowds to get up there. He had that front line to begin with. Now he's taking it easy and waiting for everyone else to catch up with him.
But it's interesting that Sunbi is almost at the front as we've gone through the first 1.1 kilometre, so they're moving on to the 2 kilometre point now. And it is, as I said, 3.5 kilometres, and then they do that 5 times. And this is where you can really run into trouble in the pack there. Somebody treads on your pole or crosses your ski, and suddenly your whole race can disappear in a flash.
Yeah, it's tricky on those steep uphills when you're trying to herringbone up and the skis are a bit wider, so it does make it tricky to sort of keep your own equipment safe and stay out of trouble.
As far as the Canadians are concerned in here, of course there'll be a lot of people looking for the likes of Alex Harvey in here. Canadians have won a total of 11 World Cup races historically. Alex Harvey, today's generation, he's the most successful with 4 wins. Devon Kershaw and Alex's dad, Pierre Harvey, won 3. And Ivan Babikov, who came from Russia to represent Canada, he's had 1 success. And Harvey and Kershaw and Babikov have won 5 of their 8 World Cup successes in the Tour stages, in the Tour de Ski stages. So interesting. Alex Harvey, although he's had 4 wins, he's never won on Canadian snow. And in fact, the best World Cup result by a Canadian belongs to his dad, Pierre Harvey. It was 4th in the 15-kilometre classic in Labrador City back in December of 1985.
So they've got some history to compete with then.
Yes, I think it was, you know, I mean, Canadian cross-country skiing, you know, first it was Becky Scott and Sarah Renner who flew the flag before the likes of Devon Kershaw and Alex Harvey started to come through. But now, you know, we're looking for the next generation of Canadian stars.
Yeah, and I think some of these guys, obviously the last big event for them here was the Olympics back in 2010 in Vancouver. And you saw them actually managing to really compete at their best when it mattered, when they're on home soil. And Devon Kershaw coming 5th, I think it was, in the 50K. But since then, he's never quite hit that same form again. And I think he'd love to be able to do his best again here back in Canada.
Well, this is the first ever World Cup cross-country race ever to be staged in Montreal. But this, of course, is a great sporting capital. You've mentioned the Olympic Games. Of course, the Summer Olympics were here in '76. The regular Canadian Grand Prix, Formula One here. And, of course, the Montreal Canadiens, in terms of ice hockey, 24 Stanley Cup successes. So they all know about sport. And I'm delighted to see in this chilly day that so many have turned out. But Ustugov, and there you can see Sunbi, the overall leader of the World Cup, now in 3rd place. Moving towards the end of the first rotation of 3.5 kilometres.
Yeah, as you can just notice here, this course really narrows down at the moment and people are struggling to get up. There's a couple of slips and falls. So that's narrowing the field down a little bit there. You can see they're spread out.
Heading back towards the stadium and the end of the first 3.5K. So the race just through 3.5 kilometres and now uninterrupted coverage right to the end. Sergei Ustugov leading the way. But over the last 3 seasons, we've had 12 races in the World Cup, over 15 kilometres in classic style. Today a little bit longer at 17.5. Only Martin Jonsson-Sundby, who's had 3 successes, and Alexei Poltaranin, 2, have won on more than 1 occasion. The other man to perhaps take note of, he's got to work up from outside the top 30, but Maurice Magnificat of France, the last Frenchman to win a World Cup race in Canada.
Yeah, he obviously feels comfortable over here. In general, I think Magnificat's better on the skate, but he's really improved on his classic, but he needs to catch up with this lead group still.
Yeah, here they go for the bonus points here, and you can see Sergei Ustugov. They pick up the sprint to the bonus point here. 1.1 kilometres after leading the stadium. So you've got Iversen, who's a good sprinter there on the tail of Oosterhoff, Jonsrud Sundby, and then Finn Horgan Krogh, who's also a top sprinter. 10, Alex Harvey for Canada. Great to see him in a prominent position early on. I think that's wonderful for him, and also something for the fans to get behind him there. He's trying to close up on this leading 3-4-5, and you can see the gap there to Finn Horgan Krogh, who looks back and sees Harvey in 5th place. Or is it Northug? Oh, it's Northug. Northug wearing a different suit? Or am I wrong?
No, that's him just going around the corner there. I think there's so many reds because you've got Alex Harvey as well. It's a little bit hard to keep track, but he's seems to be doing his normal, just hanging at the back of that lead group, getting everyone else to do the work.
Actually, I do beg your pardon. There is Alex Harvey wearing 10, and Northug's right behind him. So we weren't wrong, but they're both very much in contention.
Yeah.
And Northug, of course, needs points desperately if he's to stay in with a shout of the overall. Because although mathematically Jonsrud isn't home and dry, he's got such a lead, 596 points in the overall, 596 advantage in the distance World Cup. And when it comes to the overall World Cup, he's 674 clear. So here comes Oosterhoff, and look at this, they've broken away, him and Iversen, to try and collect 15 seconds the first man, 12 for the second man, 10 for the third man, down to 1 point for 10th place. And Harvey there in 4th place. That's good.
That's really good for him. He looks like he's just found his position and he's staying comfortable. These bonus points are a bit tricky because I always wonder, do you want to go for them? Because it could be a benefit, but on the other hand, is it going to blow you up if you work too hard too early on in the race? So some people sort of sit back and take it easy, whereas some people really want to make the most of them. So we've got Magnifica coming through here. So he's managed to make his way through the crowds back from position number 33 where he started today.
Yeah, he was just on the left, and here comes Bernhard Tritscher for Austria, not having a bad race, but you can see opening up the gaps here. 31 seconds back to the likes of Haderstad and Juve, who are really the specialist sprinters, and Oosterhoff powering on, double poling here. And that was a question they had to think about, wasn't it, in terms of waxing and preparation today?
It's a really unusual course today, so you can see on this part they're on just now, it's completely flat, so it's obviously double poling, but then we've seen as well, most of the hills are actually very steep, so they're swapping into herringbone quite a lot, so there's not necessarily so much of the traditional classic stride. Sometimes you're swipping straight from double pole into the herringbone. So for some, I think there was this consideration, are we just going to miss out the kickwax altogether and double pole everything? But I think on balance, most teams have decided to go with the kickwax because it's just a little bit risky.
Yeah, I think you need some grip, don't you?
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think that's probably the majority. But look at the way that this field is getting broken up here. And look at Sundby. You know, that injection of pace to the bonus sprint there has really made a difference. And you can see Iversen's had a little look around. There's Harvey, and being followed by Petter Northug, Sundby, Polteranen. And it's just split them apart. That's the effect of the bonus sprint. And so now for the rest of this lap, they now have to work their way back into contention. Lap 3 is without a bonus sprint, but then lap 4 is the second opportunity.
It's unusual to see the men's race broken up quite so early on in the field. You know, normally we've still got quite a big pack at this point in time, whereas to have just 3 in the front group and then another 3 or 4 hanging on, trying to build their way back up is quite unusual. So this is going to have a big effect for the overall tour as well.
And just one piece of news in, Anders Glersen of Norway has not started, which effectively means that he's out of the Tour of Canada. I suspect, although we've not had any information, I suspect that he's just poorly.
Yeah, he didn't have a great race yesterday by the looks of it, and as a sprinter, traditionally, obviously he's come on a lot in the distance recently, he'll be disappointed by that.
Well, he got a bronze medal, didn't he, in the World Championships last year in the 15 free.
Yeah, used to be a sprinter and then obviously decided, I think I've got a new way to get some medals here, so moved his way into the distance skiing.
Yeah, so obviously we wish him well, and now here's a good example of the herringbone.
You know, really steep. Look at the way they're really struggling to get their feet off the ground there. There's quite small strides just trying to keep the tempo going so you don't, as soon as you lose that, you're going to really struggle to get over the top of that hill.
And it was interesting, as you said, it's narrow here. So if you're a bit of a big beast like Ustugov, you can really spread yourself across the track.
Stop anyone else from getting past you.
Alex Harvey, by contrast, he's not a small guy, but he's much more compact.
He's not, I mean, he's still fairly tall, but he's not quite as big as some of the other guys are.
And even Sunbi, I mean, he's not a giant.
Sunbi's a fairly small one. You see him in comparison to the others, but he's really strong and he's just got such a good motor on him. That's what does it for him.
So the front three, Iversen, Ustugov. So all the field through 5.5 kilometers, and now you can see the leaders coming in and through the stadium at 7,000 meters, and there it is, Ustugov, Iversen, Northug really good, and Finn Krog, Sundby biding his time back there, and Polteranin. Interesting to see how they pace themselves. Alex Harvey just in front of Polteranin, and here comes Maurice Magnificat working very steadily. But interesting here, Magnificat, I'll just do a little check on where he was last time we saw him, because he had quite a bit to catch up. And Andrew Musgrave through at 5.5 kilometers was 53 seconds back in about 18th place. I've just picked that up on the way. I'm just trying to track Magnificat. I don't know whether the transponder's not working, but we know that he's in 9th place now, 32 seconds off the lead.
And you can see he was skiing there along with Didrik Turnsetter from Norway, and Didrik's a great classic skier as well. So if those two can work together and help bring that pack back up, they could really improve on their position at the moment, I think. So the race is far from over yet. There's a lot of time to make up some time and pull back from those leaders still.
Yeah, we haven't got to half distance now. And Polteranin just looking as if he wants to attach himself on the end here. Petter Northug, 15 kilometers classic style. He seems to be much more businesslike. And what I'm pleased about from his point of view is that he's right up there in contention in the pace. He hasn't done one of those sort of drop back and then cruise up and drop back again and cruise up. Because I don't think that works these days. They've worked him out by now.
I don't think it works on this kind of course. But on the other hand, you're still not really seeing him volunteering to take the lead and go in the front of those three.
Well, he would never do that.
He's quite happy to sit at the back and let the other two do all of the work. But you're right that he knows he's got to stay with them. These two are not going to mess around. They want to work hard and get as much of a lead as they can. So if he does anything like that, he's liable just to lose them, I think.
Yeah, but you can see there that even on this herringbone, they're just picking up just the odd half metre on him. But it was about 3 years ago in the World Nordic Ski Championships in Val di Fiemme. You might remember that, you know, they'd sussed him out by then, and ever since then they know how he races.
They know how he races. The problem is he's very good at it, so sometimes he can still get away with it anyway. But I do think the pace, especially with people like Sumbi, you can see on the screen now, they just want to work hard. They're going to push from the beginning. So these sort of tactics that Northug's been playing for the last few years just don't always work anymore, as you said.
So this is a really important lap, I think, Posey, for the simple reason that there's no bonus sprint, but there is on the next lap. So, you know, if these front three are going to be attacked, the guys behind have got to make a move. They've got to close the gap now, because these three, when they hit the stadium the next time, will start to accelerate in that kilometre going out of the stadium. And Sundby has certainly realised that, and has realised that the chase wasn't quick enough.
Yeah, I think he's realised that there's a bit of work to do here, and I think he wants to take that on himself, and he's going to push and see if he can get back to them. And it looks to me like Alex Harvey's starting to struggle a little bit at the back there.
Yeah, Polteranin though is, you're right, I think Polteranin's gone past him, but actually Polteranin's now worried, because the likes of Finn Hogg and Krog, you can see they're ahead of him, and Sundby, they're getting away.
Yeah, they are going off into the distance, I think, so let's hope they don't get swallowed up by this chasing pack instead. Yeah,
it'd be nice if our director actually just focused on that chasing pack just a wee bit longer, so we could actually see what's happening. But basically, Ustugov, Iversen, Northug, you know about. Krog, Sundby, but it's now Sundby ahead of Krog. Then Harvey, who's just lost his position to Polteranin. Turnset and Magnificat, about 30 seconds to find. And going a little further down the order, Andrew, at the moment, he's dropped back to 27th place, but he's still within a minute of the leaders, and that's not too bad. I don't know how you'd assess that, because he wasn't feeling 100%, and this isn't not his favorite discipline.
Yeah, I think as well as that, he is part of quite a big pack, so there's potential for him to move up quite a lot, just depending on, you know, where he's positioned at the moment. But I think he's doing okay. I think his aim for today was really just to move up and get him in a solid position for the rest of the tour. So you don't want to go out there. He's got a very bad habit, I must say, of going out too hard too early on. So it's good to see him actually trying to be a little bit sensible and stick in that pack rather than trying to, you know, run off and catch the leaders straight away.
Have you had sisterly words in the past?
I have told him that several times, but he doesn't really listen to me, unfortunately. I was actually going to say as well, considering our earlier discussion on the using of kick wax, I have a very bad feeling that he does not have any kick wax on his skis today. Looked to me like he was doing an awful lot of double poling over the top of one of the hills earlier on. So we'll have to see if we can catch him again on screen and see what he's doing.
But look at this. What makes Sergei Ustugov special for you, Posey, when you look at this emerging giant?
I mean, I think, as I said before, partly it's the fact he's such an all-rounder, but when you watch him ski, he's so strong, but he's really smooth as well. He's able to look like he's not working that hard.
And compare him to Sunbi, just gone through?
I think Sunbi, as you said, he's a slightly more compact skier, so he's a little bit quicker, a bit more tempo. Ustugov, to me, sometimes just doesn't look like he's working at all, but he's so powerful that, you know, he's just moving along at a slightly slower tempo compared to Sunbi.
Sunbi's got that classic barrel chest, doesn't he? You know, sort of lung capacity, huge VO2 volume, and just capacity. Yeah. But you can see how many Russians are actually getting into this now. This is quite interesting, and the Russians, I have to say, one thing I've picked up on recently is how well their service team have been serving their athletes in terms of ski preparation.
They've been doing really well, and I think it's good to see the Russians moving up, but some of them will have started quite a long way back today because some of their top skiers, Legkov and Vilegjanin, are not as strong in the sprint, so they'll have had a lot of work today to get through the pack and move up into these front positions.
And just looking at the front three, and they really are powering at the moment, the gap opening up.
But I think Polteranen and Harvey, to me, they look like they're going to get swallowed up by this pack behind very soon. These guys behind just coming up here are really making some ground on them.
Yeah, they were 17 seconds behind. Now they're 22, so they're dropping out of it, and the others are still accelerating. But at the moment, it's all about Ustugov, Iversen, and Northug. So 2 laps to go, and that means lap number 4 coming up and another bonus sprint. So Martin Jonsrud Sundby trying to really move forward. You can see the camera foreshortens the distance there. But let's just talk about Iversen for a moment, because he's early 20s, 24 years of age. He's proved himself as a winner. He won the 1.2 kilometer classic sprint in Oberstdorf. But then I think more recently he was 4th, if you remember, in Lahti in the classics 10K there. And that shows that he's more than just a sprinter. He's got a bit more to him.
Yeah, he's definitely not just a sprinter, but I think on this Norwegian team, it's so strong that you've got to prove yourself. So every start you get, you have to go out there and do really well. Otherwise, you're not necessarily going to get another one. So for the Norwegians, it's not just about winning the tour or doing really well. It's about proving that you deserve to be on this team. And you're going to get a start the next day as well. So if he can have a great tour, do well the whole way through, he set himself up really well next year as well.
And you see, I think the other thing that's in Northug's mind is, you know, like perhaps many others, is there's no Alp Surmise at the end. Yep. You know that's something that Northug can't deal with, and so consequently the potential for winning the Tour of Canada is something that I think is very much in the forefront of his mind.
I'm sure he's extremely happy about that, because he's admitted himself that it's not his strong point, and for him to admit something like that, he's all about the mind games, isn't he? Yeah. So if he's just going to come out there and say that, then you know it's really not a strong point for him. But I'm sure he'll want to do it. You know, he's so competitive. He sees himself as a great all-round skier.
Now, it's just a pity that we keep disappearing, but I think we've got to pick up, you know, this Russian challenge from bib number 63, Velekjanin of Russia, with Larkov and Legkov very close there. Again, there's again just a fraction of
a glimpse.
Yeah, a glimpse. And it's just a pity that, unfortunately, you don't quite understand that it would be really nice to actually have a look at how that lot of skiing, because you can see that Finnhog and Krog's coming under pressure there. Alex Harvey's coming under pressure as they come towards, you know, what will be this bonus sprint. And you can see Iversen on the left, Ustigov on the right, Northug, and there's Sundby, who gazes on, and Finnhog and Krog in 5th place.
Yeah, they're working really hard up there. I mean, Sundby's desperate to get back on the back of these first 3, but he's got to do it all himself because Krog just can't handle the pace anymore.
Well, this is the problem with this accelerating. He's got to, at very worst, he's got to try and match the sprint speed. He's very good up these hills here. He's quite efficient and technically he's very adept, isn't he?
Herringbone is one of these underrated techniques. I don't think you practice enough, but actually, if you can do it well, you can make up a lot of time, because it's very time-consuming, or energy-consuming.
Perhaps we'll talk about the cornering in a minute here, because that's also something which has required adaptation by the racers on this course. But let's just concentrate on the sprint. So Northug fancies a crack at Ustigov. He comes out on the right-hand side now. Ustigov goes through and takes the 15 seconds again. Northug gets the 12 on this occasion. Iversen must be happy with 10, and it'll be 8 seconds here for Martin Jonsrud Sundby. Now, Sundby, well, if he wants to get closer, he's just got to be remorseless and relentless about this.
He does, but he's running out of time, I think, isn't he? And it's so much harder by yourself as well. If you're in that front pack of 3, you've got the advantage of having other people to share the work a little bit. Even if one of them's Northug, you still have the 3 of you. For Sundby, who's gone off by himself, for Finnhagen, it's going to be tough for them out by themselves now. And for Finnhagen, you can see his head's down. He's looking really tired going up those hills. It's going to be a long old slog to the finish for him. Whereas Ustigov out in front is still pushing the pace. He just looks so strong at the front right now.
Yeah, I was a bit disappointed with Northug yesterday in the sprint. He finished in 6th place. I didn't think his track craft was particularly as good as it usually is. He seemed to, you know, get in a position there, and that wasn't going to work because he was going to be blocked, and he had to switch, and that really just he lost concentration as well as losing position.
Yeah, normally he's really good at being in the right place at the right time. That's what makes him such a good skier, but he did struggle yesterday, and it's quite a tactical course, so you had to make sure you were in the right moment, otherwise you're going to get completely blocked off.
This is very different to what they've been doing in Europe, isn't it? Not only the snow, which is actually different to European snow, but also this type of course.
Yeah, I mean, but I think here the 2 factors are combining, because we've got some really quite tricky downhills, but what's making them harder as well is the snow, because it's quite soft, it's very powdery, so it's almost got up into a berm as you go around the corners there, so you can't pick your feet up as well as you were before. You're having to pick them up really, really high, and it's very choppy. It's quite tricky.
This is quite an interesting move there by Ustigov, just an injection of pace going in. And of course, coaches giving splits there, and they'll be well aware of Sundby behind. And if Ustigov gets the idea that Sundby is closing up, he just puts a little bit more in there. But well done to Iversen and to Northug, because they both responded.
Yeah, they managed to stick on his tails. I think he had a bit of a game, didn't they? Let's see if I can get off. But they looked like they responded, so he went, OK, I'm going to hold on for now. But he's definitely controlling this race from the front.
Yeah, and there's Finnhog and Krog, and surely before this race is over, he's going to be swept up here. And the Russians piling towards us now. Velekjanin there leading this little charge. And right behind Velekjanin, wearing bib number 82.
I think it's Didrik Turnset, who I mentioned before.
Do you? Okay, yeah. Might well be.
As I said, he's a good classic skier, so this will be a stage that he was wanting to do really well in. And he's definitely not so much of a sprinter, although 30-second wasn't bad for him. So he'll be wanting to make up the time when he can. 2,500
meters to go, and apologies if you haven't seen too much of your favourites during this race, because we have been concentrating on the 1, 2, 3, 4 here. But this is a race that doesn't look as if it's going to be a Norwegian clean sweep.
Yeah, Ustigov's not going to let the Norwegians have it all their own way today, I don't think, and I'm sure he'd like that to continue for the rest of the ski tour of Canada as well.
22 going through there. That's Andrei Larkov there. Just
you can see how steep this hill is and how brutal it is. They almost look like they're walking there, and they're not. They're working really hard, but it's so steep it's hard to pick up the feet and actually run up it.
Now, you had an interesting point about the cornering when we see a bit of that, because again, in these conditions, it's requiring an adaptation of technique.
So you'll have just seen them come around the corner there, as you were mentioning, David, and with that snow they've got to pick the feet up really high, and there's no sort of skidding around the corners or something you can sometimes do if it's a bit harder packed snow. You see Sundby going around it here. He makes it look quite easy, but it's not quite as tricky when you're not in a pack, so he's got more space to play with.
Yeah, but it's got to be steps, it can't be a skate.
No.
So less than 2,500 meters to go at the moment, and well, it's really been for a while now, the story of the race has been about these front three, but Ustigov, he keeps turning the screw. Every time he does that, it's very hard to do, but it really what he does effectively is to try and break everybody else's rhythm.
He's testing them. He's saying, can you keep up with this? And can you respond to the moves that I make? Because if he's going faster, he's going to increase the tempo. Are they able to do that, or are they going to have to keep skiing as they are? You know, are they on the limit, or do they have more to give?
All credit to Sundby here. He's charging on. It looks as if Finn Hågen Krogh has got the second wind here, because he looked in real trouble. He is in real trouble in terms of the chase that's going on behind him there, because it's his teammate Didrik Turnseth who's leading the charge. Villejanin in that group as well. And how much traffic has Villejanin had to work through to get into the position that he is from bib number 63. I mean, that's a heck of a lot of traffic he's had to
It's a lot
pass.
of people, and as I said right at the beginning, you can see this course is quite narrow in a lot of places, so it's actually been a much bigger issue than it would be in other times. So it's got to be really hard for him, and it's spread out quite quickly as well. So I think he's done incredibly well to get up to that point from where he was at the beginning.
Yeah, and it shows his good form, because he won the 10K Classic in Falun, and of course he is the World Skiathlon champion, the runner-up at the Olympics over 20 kilometers behind Alexander Legkov. He's hugely versatile, and you know, he's looked particularly good in the second half of the season since we finished the Tour de Ski.
The Russians have been hotting up at the end of the season, haven't they? They've had some great races in Falun and Lahti, and I'm sure they'd like to finish off on a high here in Canada.
So 18 seconds there for Sundby, and just about holding that gap together at the moment.
I'm quite impressed with Finn Hågen, I must say. I thought that gap was going to go, and I do still think that they will swallow him up, but he's really dug in, and he's been quite tough mentally to keep that pace going by himself when he looks as tired as he does.
Magnificat, well, it hasn't been his race today. Probably prefer a freestyle race, but he's effective over in classic terms. But, you know, 59 seconds back. Legkov's further back. He's a minute and 10 back. Devon Kershaw, a minute and 12. So Andrew Musgrave now 21st, 81 seconds off the pace.
That's not too bad for him. I think he'll be happy enough with that. Puts him in a solid position for the rest of the tour with some races he's really looking forward to come still.
Right, well, now we're getting to the nitty-gritty, the last 1,000 meters. What we haven't really seen much of recently is the Peter Northug famous sprint. Has he got the speed? Has he got the gears? As Sundby does what he needs to do. He just needs to score really good points. Obviously, you know, he's got to work his way back after finishing, you know, in the sprint. A good effort, but, you know, time to make up and close up. But over the tour, I think we might see him improve. But what he's conscious of is the fact that he's got the title effectively in his pocket, and if he wins it, it'll be the third time in a row. But here we go. So Iversen now has taken over from Sergei Ustugov, but don't worry about that. If you watched the sprint with us yesterday, you will know that Ustugov can come with a really late rattle. But Iversen's skis, very good. Those are good skis.
Really good skis. Look at that gap he's opened up. That's impressive.
It is really impressive. I mean, he's absolutely sped away here. And this would be Iversen's longest distance victory in terms of achievements. He was a very good 7th as an under-23-year-old in the under-23 Worlds when he was 7th in the skiathlon. So he can race both codes. But the issue here is when you make a break like this, Posey, I think at this late stage, you've got to make it count.
Yeah, it's all or nothing at this point. There's no point in doing that and then, you know, not following it up. From now on, he's got to go 100% all the way to the finish if there's any point in doing that at all. And it's not long to go, but that can still feel like a long time when your legs are screaming at you and you've got some steep hills to go up. So let's see if he can make it. But very brave, worth a go, I reckon. I think he knows he doesn't have the sprint speed. That's my feeling. He's got Nortig with him and Ustugov. He's got two good sprinters. I think he feels he needs to break the pack early on like he's trying to do if he's got any chance of getting that win. So he's going big. And
Finn Hogenkrog has, as we suspected, been swallowed up by the pack with Verlegjanin involved. So Sundby in his own little area there, pretty uncomfortable to be honest. But still to reach the 16,000 meter point. And Petter Northug sticking like glue to the tails of Ustugov's skis. And a final bit of encouragement there for Sundby. Not that I imagine he needs it, but Iversen looking really good. And another downhill. And if those skis are as effective as we saw a few moments ago, this will take him away, and it has. And now you can see the double poling strength, and Ustugov is no slouch at double poling, but look at Iversen, he's actually taken them apart.
Yeah, that gap is definitely widening, but he'll be running scared. He knows, as I said, he's got to keep pushing till the end. He can't afford to let up for a single second when you've got two skiers of that caliber right behind you.
Well, remember, he was 5th yesterday in the Gatineau sprint. He's aware of what Sergei Ustugov can do, and maybe that was in his mind, and decided, look, I don't want to leave this down to the last 100 meters. I really need to go earlier than that. I can't have the Russian breathing on my shoulder. And so that's possibly why he's decided that he has to go early. But more than a kilometre out, that's a brave choice.
It is a very brave choice. And these two, they're not quite getting him back yet, but they're not far behind. And now Nortug's really going for it.
Yeah, well, Nortug saw that Ustugov was almost doubled over there, and maybe the exertions of yesterday are now telling on him more than they are on Nortug. You can never tell how you come out of a race overnight when you're racing 2 days in a row.
No, absolutely not. That's very true. And as I say, it's all about your technique as well here. I think he started to struggle going up the hill. It steepens up right at the top here. Ustugov wasn't able to hold his technique together quite as well as Nortug has. And now he's paying the price because now he's been gapped by Nortug as well. So from looking like he was controlling the pace right at the front of those three, now he's off the back in third. He's going to have to work to not let that gap grow any bigger.
So Iversen pushing away, Nortug moving into second place, but I think the move is too late. I think he should have moved a lot earlier than that. And at the moment, Iversen with the better skis, and the serviceman's going to get a glass of something, I think, because clearly he's done the job for Iversen.
Yeah, and they've managed to hold this gap to Sundby as well, which is impressive given the form that Sundby's had over the year.
Well, you see, that injection of pace has taken Sundby back another 10 seconds. So this is real single file racing now. Ustugov, he's still very much going to be a contender for this Tour of Canada if he maintains third place, and I can't see why that wouldn't happen, barring a fall or something silly. But Ustugov clearly maybe one or two many press interviews. You also have to factor that in, and you could just see on the corner there when he came round Posey, he just lost his balance just a little bit, Ustigov.
Yeah, it's when the legs get tired at the end and you've got to step around those corners. It's really hard to do. So that to the end of the race, you've got to take those corners a little bit more conservatively sometimes, just to be on the safe side.
So through 16,000 meters, and really the end is in sight here. Just looking at Sundby in fourth, Bulegjanin in fifth, and then Turnseth and Larkov. Finn Huggen Kroos dropped back to eighth, and Alex Harvey the best for Canada in ninth. Hans Christian Holland has made a little progress, the Norwegian, into 10th place ahead of Belov. Magnificat, who is some 73 seconds behind Iversen at the last checkpoint, but Iversen surely, Northug very purposeful, he's striding well here, looks as if there's plenty of power, and you can just see a little horizontal rock there in Ustigov's shoulders.
Yeah, trying to keep himself solid and pushing towards the finish, but you can see all three of them now. This is the finishing straight, essentially. They're putting the burners on to get to the finish line. You can see how hard they're working. Northug's not hanging around. He's not playing any games this time. He knows he's got to work hard.
Well, the thing about it is that actually Iversen finished ahead of him yesterday, and now Iversen's going to finish ahead of him again today, but it's not going to be a huge differential. Remember, it's 50 points for the winner, 46 for the second man. Northug will be a little annoyed, but the thing about it is that he is ahead of Ustigov, which means it keeps him a little closer to the front. And Iversen, congratulations, that's the longest distant victory that he's achieved in his World Cup career, and that's an excellent performance. And you can see Ustigov, well, we cut away there, but Ustigov just slumped to the snow.
He might have just been trying to avoid the TV cameras after his crash at the end of the sprint yesterday.
I think he was racing on fumes at that particular point.
He looks pretty out. You can see him there. He's worked hard today, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has, and you know, absolutely down and out. Actually, I have to say, I always like to see that. I like to see racers who give absolutely everything. And now, watch out for Bulegjanin coming home. Here he is.
Great race by him.
Yeah, from 63 fantastic. Up into, fifth place.
Yeah.
That's terrific. And Turnseth for Norway coming through as well into sixth spot. And this is Larkov. That's a very good effort from Larkov. And that must be one of the top races. You can see Alex Harvey wearing 10. 43 across the line there, that's Holland, and Harvey just behind.
Good to see Harvey keeping his top 10 position there again, though. That'll give some of the home fans something to cheer about. I'm sure he'll be having a lot of support on the course.
Yeah, just thinking about, Larkov, and Andrew Musgrave coming into the side of the finish now, wearing 44, finishing strongly, double polling, as you highlighted there, but inside the top 20, Andrew Musgrave.
That's fantastic for him, actually. That's a really solid result for him in a classic race. I think he's going to be happy with that.
Yeah, and that's the sort of performance he can take confidence on into a freestyle race.
Yeah, he's going to be certainly looking forward to the next couple of days. I think there's some good races for him to come.
So 14 across the line, that's Eric Bransdal. And there's De Fabiani, the under 23 points leader for Italy. Very much a classic specialist, but he's found this hard today.
I would have thought he might have been another one to sneak a little bit higher up the rankings today, but obviously didn't find this course to his liking today.
No, I think he also had a lot of traffic to go through. Dominik Boldorf of Austria just finishing, and some of the later starters there. 80, that looked like Lukas Bauer of the Czech Republic. Once upon a time, yeah, there it is, 33rd. Once upon a time, 15 kilometers in classic style. That was food and drink to Lukas Bauer. Championship form, world championship form at that particular race, but he's not shown anything. He's one of the more experienced athletes, but this season we haven't seen the best of him. And Theodor Pedersen, another specialist sprinter coming home, Olympic medalist, and 12 here. This is Sebastian Eisenlauer, again another man who's really more at home with the sprints than anything else. 77, the end of the run there for Jens Boerman. Jens Boerman actually really good medal in the under-23 Worlds just recently.
And we just saw Richard, I was going to point, we just saw Richard Jouvet come in there as well, so from 3rd down to 43rd today, but you know, he's not done so many distance races on the World Cup this year, or ever, I don't think, so I think he's just conserving his energy and trying to have another good sprint result on Friday, I should think.
Yeah, I think Jens Boerman is a man to keep on your side. I knew it was in my mind there. 15-kilometer classic winner in Raznov in Romania just a week or so ago. And, you know, he'd shown up in a couple of other races, and we sort of looked at him. You know, he was 24th in Falun, and that was a promising race against the world's best. And now he's emphasised that I think he's one of the real Swedish talents.
First World Cup win, then you did it again last week in Lahti, and both in sprints, and now you have a 15K classic in tough conditions. It's just amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. The shape is still very, very good, so I just go on, and it's fun to ski these days.
And with this kind of shape that you have right now, how exciting is it for you to have a tour to get to do it every 8 days or 8 times in the next 12 days?
Yeah, it's a tour is good for me because I can do sprint and longer distance. So I think I have had a really good start. So I'm looking forward to the next competitions.
Really impressive. Congratulations on a great win.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, I've got to say, if you look at the finish board, as you see some of the highlights of the race with Sergei Ustugov, who for much of the way set the pace, the result board looks as, well, it's absolute domination by Norway and Russia. The Norwegians have got no less than 5 men in the first 8, and the Russians have got 4 in the top 10. So, Posey, not easy today.
Absolutely not. You heard Emil mention it there in his interview at the end. Really tough conditions. Look at how powdery the snow is. It's really soft, cold, windy, hard tracks and really steep hills. It's the kind of thing that tough skiers will thrive in. You've got to be really hard out there. Not an easy day.
I'm interested to see how they sum this up, you know, in terms of victories, because basically he'd won the Tour de Ski 1200 meter classic sprint and Lahti the outright sprint, which I suppose you could call, you know, the true first World Cup victory. But essentially, you know, a win's a win. So I make this is, well, people will argue with me. It's definitely his second, but arguably his third success in the World Cup.
People get picky, but to me, that's the best in the world right there. So that's a well-deserved victory.
Yeah, absolutely. And 3 happy guys there, but the happiest of the lot, certainly the man in the centre. And so Montreal, women's and men's races completed. Teresa Johaug absolutely splendid, leading a Norwegian charge of the first 4 home. And it's a Norwegian 1-2 here. Iversen ahead of Northug. Ustugov of Russia avoiding a Norwegian clean sweep. But then Sundby in 4th place, Vuleg Janin in 5th. That was a terrific performance. Turnseth, Larkov, and then Holland, and the first non-Norwegian Russian, happily, is Alex Harvey in 9th place. Polteranin, who's really usually pretty effective at this sort of distance and style, down in 14th place. Besmertnik of Russia in 15th. Devon Kershaw 17th, a more promising performance from him. Andrew Musgrave actually finishing in 18th place, ahead of Jean-Marc Gaillard and Alexander Legkov. So I can see why you were thinking that Andrew will have an inner sense of achievement today when they go and have a bite to eat.
Yes, I think that's a great ski from him, so he'll be happy, but he'll already be focusing on the next one. I think for him and for all these guys out there, yes, it's good to have a good ski today, but in a tour, as soon as you're done, your mind's almost starting to think about the next one. So they're going to be thinking about recovery, having some food, a little warm down, and then having a drive over to Quebec for the next stage.
And talking of the next one, well, it's back to freestyle sprinting in Quebec, and that's for both the men and women, and that starts at 10:15 on Friday evening. That's Central European time. So an hour earlier for those of you with us across the United Kingdom. Posey Musgrave and myself will be your hosts for that race. And of course, this is pretty intensive racing, so they're also staying in Quebec for Saturday, when the women will be doing a 10-kilometer freestyle pursuit, and the men also involved in a 15-kilometer freestyle pursuit. And I think Andrew, from today's performance, if he gets some good rest and feels good, is really going to look forward to that Saturday freestyle pursuit.
Yeah, the freestyle pursuit is going to be a really big one for him. Obviously, he loves skate, he likes distance results, but he also likes those pursuit starts and the chance to chase a few people down in front of you. He seems to do well in those conditions.
And he will have to do that, Posey, won't he? Because he will be running through traffic. He's not going to be starting on the front rank.
No, he's absolutely not going to be. There's going to be people around him, but it's trying to again be intelligent with your skiing and going, okay, I've got to work through people, but who around me can I ski with, and who can we work together with to move up, rather than doing all the work yourself.
So I hope you enjoyed the action here in Montreal. I tell you, the men have had the better conditions than the women. It was blowing a gale when Teresa Johaug was out on the course there. But a really good start, I think, to the Tour of Canada. Of course, I'm sure there'll be people who've got this point and that point, but, you know, it's a starting point, and I think it's great that the World Cup has come to North America.
Yeah, it's been really fantastic to see over here. Great crowds, a really good turnout, as you said, 80 people there.
So 45 minutes, 5.4 seconds for Iversen to achieve what we think is his third victory in true form. Maurice Magnificat with Best for France moving up into 12th place there. And as you can see, Andrew Musgrave there was in 18th place. And he's got ahead of quite a few very strong racers there, and that will give him a bit of encouragement. Andrew Young, of course, who is more focused on the sprint, just inside the top 50. Hope you enjoyed the action from Posey Musgrave and myself, David Goldstrom. Thank you for watching. So we've got a few more moments before we go. Just to remind you of that time, it's 10:15 on Friday for us to give you the build-up to the next men's and women's freestyle sprint. Thank you once again. Enjoy the rest of your evening. For now, bye-bye from Montreal.